supposed to follow an introduction like that. There's nothing I can say that won't detract from an introduction like that, you know. I'll open my mouth and there it goes. But anyway, I don't have a better friend in all of Washington, D.C. than is sitting right over there. Steve King. You couldn't want a better friend than Steve King. And that's, yeah, I came on the bus tour. But I said, you know, I went to Steve first thing. I said, do you think, really? I mean, you know, I know you invited me, but I wanted to talk to you about it. Because I don't want to hurt the effort. And when you sound like me, sometimes people, like Jeff Foxworthy said, you know, they'll hear a Southern accent, they'll deduct 50 IQ points from us before they ever hear you say anything. And I don't want to, you know, what's going on there. And he said, Louie, you'll love the people in Iowa and they'll love you. And I'm telling you what, if he wasn't right about that, that bus tour across Iowa, I'm going, wow. Another place in the country where it's not just sense, it's common sense. That's nice, because you don't find it at all. So, yeah, and it was amazing, and I couldn't believe how Steve passed me going up. But at 16,000, when you get above 16,000 feet, most of us will breathe hard. It just happens. And I kept thinking, he realized you don't have to catch your breath, just get over the dizziness. And I was still thinking it was a good idea to catch my breath before I But anyway, it was amazing to get up there. And yes, I was asked to be a deacon of my Baptist church in Tyler, Texas back in 1986. And they said, and we have to ask that you not drink alcohol. I said, well, you know, it's kind of hard to justify scripturally, because Jesus first recorded miracles, turned water to wine, and you know, Paul wrote Timothy, have a little wine for your digestion. They said, yeah, but people will know this is the biggest church east of Dallas and north of Houston, and they'll know you're involved as a leader in the church, and you'll be a stumbling block. I hate that verse, but anyway, you'll be a stumbling block. So anyway, I said, well, all right, just don't ask me to give up Dr. Pepper, and I'll be all right. But I told Steve about the Catholic priest and the Baptist preachers on the airplane, and flight attendant came up and said, can I get you gentlemen something to drink? And the Catholic priest said, I believe I'd like a little glass of red wine. And the Baptist said, you know, we Baptists believe it's a sin to drink alcohol. And the priest said, you know, that's a little strange. Jesus' first recorded miracle, you know, was turning water into wine. The Baptist said, yeah, and we think a whole lot less of him because of it. So anyway, that's not my situation. But so I'm not on the active deacon list, but I found I was sentencing a lot of people that who had offenses that involved alcohol. I was a felony judge, including capital punishment. And I just found it was easier, you know, when you stand up and say the things I do and do the things I do, if there's any hint that you've been drinking, then you're toast. So I look forward to someday when I get back to having a nice glass of wine. But in the meantime, I don't drink. But I'll tell you what, I just love this state. And when I was asked to come to an event like this for Sam, I thought about, you know, because I'm sure you know Sam's background or you wouldn't be here. I thought about when I was asked by someone who was thinking they might want to come intern in Washington. Well, we need interns. That's a great thing. And this intern said, do you think being an intern is like the best thing you could do to prepare you for being a member of Congress? And I said, no, it's really not. And he said, wow, what job did you have that best prepared you for being in Congress? And I said, well, there were a whole bunch of them. I thought construction work is just a great preparation for working in Congress, because you get to see how things are really made, and doing carpentry and, I mean, digging footing for concrete, whatever. And then I think working on farms and ranches, whether it's baling hay, hauling hay, whether it's helping with the cows, whatever. I thought that was a very helpful job, and I found I didn't enjoy it, but crawling under houses, exterminating and cleaning it, that was, I didn't like it. I was a teller at one time, but that's probably helped along the way. And working at service station was a good job too. That was good preparation because that gets you knowing more about people and dealing with people. And by the way, back then, if you paid my boss $5, I had to get down with toothpicks to clean out the little cracks in the armrest. And now they call some of that stuff detailing, and they don't do near what I did for $5. Anyway, really confusing now. But anyway, I went through a bunch more jobs and ended up, and I said, and then of course, it's not a necessity, but it really does give you a fresh look at the country. I spent 4 years in the Army, and that was extremely helpful. And this poor intern's going, I thought maybe just if I was an intern, I'd be ready. And I said, well, some have done that and then ran for Congress. But you take a guy like Steve King, when you have built things from nothing, you're going to be a better congressman. It's just the way it is. Now, I grew up in a little town in East Texas, and Ms. Milam was 90 when she was still cooking, and I was in high school, and many times she would call my mother, because Ms. Milam was my mother's best friend in all of Mount Pleasant, and she would call my mother and say, tell Louie I've cooked some fresh rolls. They're the best rolls in the world. I love Miss Milam's roll. I was over there one time, and her daughter, very smart lady, but Miss Milam was smart, but she probably didn't finish 7th grade, but she was brilliant. And her daughter was talking about one of the guys there in Mount Pleasant, and Miss Milam said, well, he's a fool. And her daughter said, Mother, he has his PhD. And she said, I don't care. He'll be a PHUL fool the rest of his life. And so anyway, I've come to know, since hearing Ms. Milam say that there are people with PhDs that are PHULs as well. But I can also tell you, Sam's not one of them. So a guy that served his country, he served his country. He has flown. He's done all kinds of things you can do in the military. But he's a patriot. And I love that about him. I've known others who made the military, did 20 years or so, and I wouldn't support them for anything. But, and we saw some of those folks at Fort Benning when I was serving there. Because this was right after we went all volunteer. And some recruiters, with 18, 19 years in, they're told, you're going to get this number of recruits every month, or we're going to get you out before you get to 20. They put terrible heat on them. And so then some of you may remember the commercials would run and they would say, I'm going to be a Nike missile repairman, guaranteed, and have their contract. Well, the way it worked in the Army, they would sign you up for whatever you wanted to be. If you wanted to be the computer expert, they would sign you up to be a computer expert. And when you ended up at Fort Benning, you'd have an attitude, and you would say, the Army's got no right to keep me here at Fort Benning at the home of the infantry. I'm supposed to be a computer expert. Yeah, many of us would explain, but if you will look down at the bottom, it is smaller print, but it says, if you fail out of your basic course, you will be reassigned to fill the needs of the Army. And let me guess, you failed out of that. Well, yeah, but I was guaranteed. I'm sorry, welcome to filling the needs of the Army. And so those were tough days, and there were some of those guys that made it in the military longer than I would have thought. But still, I I just think God has a way for preparing us for what lies ahead, even when we don't know what's ahead. I didn't expect to be in Congress, and I really didn't want to be a judge. And my late mother, incredibly smart, put herself through Baylor in 2.5 years, working full-time. Her dad, mom couldn't help her at all, and her dad had a drinking problem. I never met him, died before I was born, but probably an alcoholic, but she did that. And she told me all through the 80s when she was dying with a brain tumor, Louie, you know, God meant for you to be a public servant, you'd be a good judge. I said, Mother, I don't want to be a judge. I couldn't sit and listen to half these lawyers. They're not very good, you know. Anyway, after she passed away, in 1991, in January, I thought, you know, maybe Mama's right. Maybe that's something I'm supposed to do. And then I ended up having a judge call me up. I had a civil trial on breach of contract coming up. And we'd had a preliminary hearing trial in a week and a half, and he called me up, which was a little weird because you're not supposed to have one-sided, one-party conversations with the judge. And so I thought, well, surely it's not about anything to do with my case. And I got on the phone, and he was a much older gentleman, and he said, that's a mighty fine-looking woman you had in my court the other day. You think she'd go out with me? And for those who are not aware, it's not appropriate to set the judge up with your client before the trial.